7 o'clock. I'll call our meeting to order. Kevin, call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Here.
Mrs. Sweet?
Here.
Mr. Bear?
Here.
Mr. Whitaker?
Here.
Mr. Avery?
Here.
Mr. Hannah?
All members of council are present. Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And good evening. This is the regular session of the Enon Village Council, and this is Tuesday, November 8, 2022, Election Day. So welcome, everyone. Additions to our agenda this evening from council. Mr. Hannah?
Right, a quick one. I guess we can start calling that old business.
Okay.
For the sports park.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mrs. Sweet.
And I'm sorry, we'll be scheduling a public service meeting under committee reports.
Under committee, Mrs. Sweet. Okay. Let's go into the minutes of our Tuesday, October 25th, 2022 meeting. And if there are no changes recommended, then I would entertain a motion and a second to approve.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitaker, seconded by Mr. Bear. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
Those minutes are approved as presented. Thank you very much. Let's look at some financial information. So the first report is cash summary by fund, I believe, in the packet there. Well, it wasn't mine anyhow. General fund, $142,000. Street fund, $61,000. We have in our ARPA, $135,000. Police levy, $299,000. Water operating, $215,000. Contingency, $110,000. Total of all funds, $878,756.38. Looking at our revenue, general fund, about 93%. Again, that's going to be off a little bit because of the estimate from the auditor's office. I do want to bring your attention to one of the line items. Go about halfway down, if you would, please, 1,440-0000, where it says grants or aids. That will increase by $20,250 to show receipt for, what was that called again, Kevin?
Nature Work Grant.
The nature work grant for the park. So the money has been received, the contractor's been paid. So on the receipt end, it'll go into the general fund under grants. And let's take a look at the street fund, page 2, 82% received, so we're in good shape there. Police levy, 94. Again, that's going to be short because of the auditor's estimates. And let's see what the water fund's doing. Water fund on page 4 is, well, we're 84%, so we're in good shape there. Last page, 88%. You know what? It's a good possibility we may go over 100% by the time it's all said and done, but really we're in pretty good shape. So let's look at our appropriation status report. And I will bring again to your attention on this report that corresponds with the revenue report on page number 1, about halfway down. If you look at 1,310,500,0000 capital outlay for the recreation, there was an expenditure of that $20,250, which left a negative encumbrance, which we will fix tonight by asking council to increase that appropriation to account for that expenditure of that grant money. On page 2, so general fund, total expenditures 94%. I did talk to Laura about this morning a little bit. When we add, if you go over on those total lines, if you go to that final appropriation, it'll increase by that 20,250 to 349,950. And then when you take the percentages of spent versus appropriated, it'll bring that 94% down to 89%. And from the general fund standpoint, the big stuff is done for the year. At the end of September, we were at 83%, I believe, so that'll put us at 89%. Street construction, maintenance and repair, 84%. And let's see, police levy, that's on page 3, we're about 80%. If you turn to page, well, it's actually on page 5, water fund, we're about 82%. And overall, with all funds, we're about 80% of our expenditures versus our appropriations. We have the bank reconciliation for the month of October. If you notice on that first page, there was an adjustment of $39. That was for a check that was returned. It showed up on the bank statement and then had to be taken out because it didn't clear, it bounced. So we had to remove it from our books. And on that back page, there are no differences on page number 2. So with all of that, I would ask for approval of the bank reconciliation and reports for the month of October.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Sweet, seconded by Mr. Whitaker. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Under communications, I did have just one item. Mr. Hannah, have you received any feedback regarding the request from the last council meeting regarding the renaming of Main Street or Dayton Road?
I've got responses back from 3 of my fellow council members, still waiting for 2. So at this point, I don't think we're prepared to move forth with a recommendation right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other items of communication? Staff reports? Kevin, good
All right.
evening.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, residents. The first item on my report there is a backhoe update. We've kind of come into some problems with the current backhoe. We have found out there's a hole in the head, and the exhaust manifolds are getting bad, as well as the water pump. So it's down to Big Rig. Andy's taking a look at it, going to tear it down basically to get a better idea of actually, we know those kind of 3 things are wrong with it. He called me and he asked me to come down and he showed me where the hole in the head was. It's just rusted. I mean, it's a year 2000, 2001, something like that. So it's, a little over 20 years old. So, it still runs, just losing a little horsepower due to the, rusted hole in the head, but it still runs. So we did take it back down there. We do have access to the county or the township, if we need a backhoe or need assistance like that. We've already made arrangements with them to help us out in an emergency. Because if right now, once he gets it tore down, who knows what other parts and accessibility of parts too right now. So it could be down for a while. But we talked about it, the mayor, Jason, Doug, and myself, and we felt that it's going to be a minimum of $5,000. But we felt that if we can get another year out of it, and then I'm going to start looking at different equipment, backhoe, or even possibly, I know that Jason and Doug and I was talking about a mini excavator and possibly a bobcat, instead of a backhoe, because you get 2 pieces of equipment, can do 2 different things for the same price as one piece of equipment. So I'm going to be researching both ways this next year, and then hopefully we can get it in the budget for 2024. We're kind of looking that far ahead if we can get another year out of what we've got now. So that's where we're at on that. So I'll keep you up to date on what's going on with that. So. Item number 2, Board of Zoning Appeals met on November 2nd for Joe Smalden's variance request. He had put in a variance request for a 2-foot height variance on a building that he wants to construct on his lot down there on North Green Street. The Board of Zoning Appeals did approve that variance request, so just want to let you know on that. Pre-construction meeting for the Enon Xenia Road project. Let me get my notes out here.
This is really important because this thing is going to take off, I think, a little bit sooner than we thought, so.
Yes, construction's supposed to start January 16th. It's going to start down on Hunter Road and work its way to Rubber Pike for the first phase, replacing storm sewer in that area. Phase 2 is going to be the water line relocation. And then phase 3 is going to be from Rubber Pike to Green Vista to finish out the storm sewer installation on that. Like I said, January 16th start date. They're going to be working 5 10-hour days to start out with, no weekends, but that's subject to change. The contract completion date is going to be November the 3rd, 2023. So.
Want to take a bet on that?
Yeah, it looks good on paper. But Paul DeBooty's going to be in contact with Darren Kanapke at the school just to kind of get a list of events that might be taking place that they're going to have to kind of be aware of. The construction company's going to have to kind of be aware of. So, but I think the school lets out at June 20th or something like that. I think Jason looked it up. I'm not
How
really
does
sure.
this, Kevin, how does this first phase for Hunter Road to Rubber Pike, how long is that supposed to last? What was their estimate on that part, please?
I had that written. I'll have to find out and I'll email that to you. I'll kind of get a better
Because
grasp on that.
I
If I
thought
had
they
it written out, it must
had
be
them
on my
kind
desk.
of timed out
Yeah.
in the 3, okay.
Yep, I'll get that to everybody.
Thank you.
So, but other than that,
I think it'd be closing the road at all.
it's going to be down to one lane. There might be a time where they're going to have to close it, but they're going to try to time all that when school's out and things like that, at least to alleviate the busing and things like that.
They're going to have a traffic light there then, right? You were going to have one of those portable
That's
traffic
what they were
lights on
talking
each
about.
end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So
Right, where, which intersection?
they'll have to have. Well, once they start the phase 3, Robert to Green Vista, that's going to be the big.
So when it's
project
down to
there.
one lane, they're probably going to have the traffic light having just, instead of them having a flagger.
Right, that's the way
okay.
I'm understanding, yes.
Gotcha,
They got all
okay.
that kind of equipment and
I'd rather see that anyways.
so I don't- message boards and stuff ready on hand and stuff like that, so. Let's see here.
You said that was January 16th.
January
was the start
16th.
date, and the anticipated completion's the end of November.
Yes, November 23rd. And if they don't, they pay kind of a daily fine if they didn't go past that date, so.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, they do? Okay, good. Good to
They
know.
pay $900 per day.
That's why they're working 5, 10-hour
They
days
get it done
starting out.
before that, they get, $1,000 per day for each day that, so there's a little incentive
Yeah.
for them to keep at it, so. Let's see here, the office will be closed for Veterans Day on Friday. And the blood drive was another great success. There was 36 people registered to give blood, 27 units collected. 22 units they had projected, so they met 122% of the goal. They say that will go on to save 81 lives, so another good turnout. The next blood drive is Wednesday, December 21st, 12:30 to 6:30 here at the office. And anybody interested in donating blood, go to www.donortime.com. www.donortime.com. So,
Wow. Okay. What was that date again, Kevin?
yeah,
What was the actual date?
DonorTime.com.
It was December what?
December 21st,
21st, you said.
21st, thank
December
you.
21st, 12:30 to 6:30.
Gotcha, thank you.
And the mayor's court report is in front of you for the month of October. There was 7 traffic cases. Total funds received for the current month, $2,289. Year-to-date, $19,437.40. Total remitted to the state, current month, $225. Year-to-date, $2,889. Total remitted to the village, current month, $2,055, and year-to-date, $16,437.40.
I'll move that we accept the mayor's court report as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Whitaker and seconded by Mrs. Sweet. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And I have an ordinance that needs to be passed. It's an ordinance, it's in your packet there. It's an ordinance for my authorization to sign the required documents for the Ohio Public Works Round 37 wastewater line replacement project. This, by the time the app was due, we didn't have a council meeting to pass this, so they said go ahead and turn in the app and turn this in later, so that's why this is coming up tonight, so.
So if it's the pleasure of the council to read by title only, then Kevin, I'll ask you to do that if that's the pleasure of the council.
That's good.
That's fine.
Okay?
Ordinance number 2022-04, an ordinance authorizing the village administrator of the Village of Enon, Ohio, to sign all required documents for the Ohio Public Works, OPWC, Round 37 wastewater line replacement project and declaring an emergency.
I'll move that we waive the 3 reading rule.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Whitaker, seconded by Mrs. Sweet. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Ms. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
And now we need a motion and a second to pass ordinance number 2022-04.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Sweet, seconded by Mr. Bear. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
That ordinance passes, thank you very much, and becomes effective as of the signing of the ordinance. So we'll give that to you this evening.
After that. Okay, thank you very much. And Jason and myself will be in training tomorrow down in Cincinnati, going through a confined space identification and safe practices training. So I just want to let you know that we'll be gone tomorrow for that, and that'll give us some more credits for our water license. Plus, I know we have to come up with a confined space kind of a program or for our village here. So that's why one of these we're going down, suggested by the BWC. So
Good deal.
I think that's it for now, Mayor.
Thank you. Good report. Questions for our administrator?
I have a comment. Will you thank the guys for fixing the flags down Main Street, please?
Yes,
Thank
will.
you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Kevin, I
Comments?
just looked, just more as a comment. Ritchie Brothers is having another auction on December 6th, so we might want to start looking at some of the stuff they have as far as maybe some landscape or replacement equipment.
Okay.
See, it may have something.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, Kevin. Chief, good evening.
Evening, Mayor, Council, and residents. sorry, must be contagious. Drug take-back results for the National Drug Take-Back Day last Saturday was 67.5 pounds. Now, that wasn't that day. That was a total for the 6-month period, but we actually had a little bit of low turnout that Saturday, which we're not complaining. But that's what we've submitted since the last take-back. Personnel update. I emailed out earlier, but Officer Anthony Reynolds submitted his resignation letter effective November 7th. He's got to me and NCC, of course, the mayor in the village, but he just asked it to accept this letter as a written notice of resignation from the position of patrol officer at the Enon Police Department, effective November 7th. He's been presented with an offer of employment with the Clark County Sheriff's Office effective November 14th, and he accepted it. First and foremost, he'd like to thank Chief Holler for your hard work and dedication to not only me, but the agency as a whole. Your teachings and insight have not gone unnoticed, and I will carry them with me throughout my career in law enforcement. Secondly, he'd like to extend his gratitude to Mayor Tim Howard and the village administration, village council, and the residents of Enon for the opportunity to serve here in the village. This experience has been one to remember and will not be forgotten. He wishes all the best in the future endeavors, whatever they may bring, and he hoped to see Enon grow and continue to thrive for years to come. And thank you all again, respectively, Officer Anthony Reynolds. So, very nice of him, yes.
It was,
and
yes.
he did do well while he was here. We appreciate it. Hate to see him go. I tried to keep him, but I wish him well. I think he'll do great, as he has so far. Speaking of personnel update, I had a person who I felt was a shoe-in for the full-time spot to fill him. He had relayed to me that he was interested, and I had him scheduled for the police and fire physical stuff this week. However, I came in Monday morning to an email that said that he had to respectfully decline that. So that is no longer an option. That was a shock to me, but it's business, right? Also, the part-time officer that was in the process of being hired also sent me a message and asked me to call them yesterday, and I called them back, and they said they need to rescind their acceptance because they have a part-time gig they just make more money at, and they're able to freely basically come and go at the current agency that holds their commission for the law enforcement part, so they withdrew from the part-time that they were applying for. Sad. But the light at the end of the tunnel is one of the applicants who said they only wanted full-time, and they turned it down any job because they'd had the full-time offer 2 weeks prior to working with us, and I'll keep the details limited as to not, so to speak, set them on fire with their current employer in case they change their mind. But they did reach out to me also via email. I don't know if they all three know each other or what, but and said that they'd heard that the spot was coming up and they'd like to sit down and talk to me and have a scheduling. I spoke with them a little bit on the phone and have a scheduled a meeting with them tomorrow to just kind of answer a few questions for them. So that's the light at the end of that tunnel. After that, we're depleted from any applicants, so we'll just have to keep on searching. But at least hopefully we'll snatch that one up.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
That's that on the personnel update, other than the current personnel we have, which is the short few that you see. They're all very happy. I had a brief meeting today, and everybody seems to be positive, so we're good. I have a resolution for the purchase of a new cruiser. I'm going to guess we'll adjust the number because it's resolution number 2022-4. I would guess that we'll bump that up to 5.
It's a resolution. It's
Well, the ordinance will be
Oh, is it
different.
the
than
same number?
resolution.
They're both
Mine
gonna be
was
the
an
same?
ordinance.
Once it's
Oh,
ordinance,
okay.
Yeah.
it's a
Well, then
resolution.
I correct myself. One's an ordinance, one's a resolution. An emergency resolution authorizing the police chief for the village of Enon, Ohio, to sign all necessary and required documents for the purchase of new police vehicle for the village of Enon, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. The village of Enon, whereas the village of Enon, Clark County, Ohio, has entered into an agreement to purchase a 2022 Dodge Durango through Joe Sassoni's Chrysler Complex, 2380 Military Road, Niagara Falls, New York, 14304. Whereas the village of Enon, Ohio, will purchase said police vehicle by obtaining finance from West Banco and Now therefore be resolved by Council and Village of Enon, Clark County, Ohio, that resolution hereby declared to be a measure necessary for immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and welfare, and for the further reason of meeting project deadlines, this resolution shall be in force and effective from the signing by the mayor, Village of Enon, and earliest time allowed by law. And
So we'll need a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule.
So moved?
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Sweet, seconded by Mr. Whitaker. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
And we would entertain a motion and a second to pass resolution number 2022-04.
So moved?
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Sweet, seconded by Mr. Hannah. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
That resolution passes and goes into effect as soon as Rick puts his signature on it. So we're in good shape.
thank you.
You're welcome.
At least I see ordinance and resolution. My apologies. Miscellaneous communications. Boy. About that. We were supposed to we had some office stuff donated to us by Speedway. I thought I was going to go pick it up in December, but it turns out I'm going to go pick it up tomorrow. I got the phone call today. I'm very thankful 7-Eleven Speedway donated a couple of the horizontal filing cabinets to the PD and a credenza. I hadn't created space, so we'll get with the road guys with a truck and a trailer and go down there and get that. They are taking their office at mid-office, moving it to the front, and they're changing that section into a warehouse facility. So, again, nice to have those folks donate that, so it's kind of costly. So it worked out because I've been looking for a few, and I found some.
Good.
So short of that, I will field any comments anybody has. That's it.
Questions for our chief?
Do we want to change our sign out front for full-time as well as part-time?
Well, it depends on how my meeting goes tomorrow.
There you go.
I'm optimistic, but,
Do you think we'll go full-time?
yes, that's all he wanted when we interviewed him. So, yeah, I hope so. Those spots aren't typically hard to fill. So, I mean,
Good luck with that, though.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Any other questions or comments for our chief? Okay. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for your work. And committee reports. Mr. Whitaker, you're up first with the Finance Committee.
Okay, so we had a finance committee meeting last Monday, the 31st of October. Purpose was to discuss our financial status regarding police. We've been talking lately about the possibility of being able to cover a 5th full-time officer with our current budget. We had our meeting. It was myself, Mrs. Sweet, Mr. Babcock, Mayor Howard, Kevin, Chief Holler, and Laura Ewing, our fiscal officer, got on Zoom with us. So we discussed the out-year projections for our police levy with different options that were presented to us, different amounts that the general fund would have to kind of provide to offset the expenditures of adding a 5th full-time officer. During the meeting, we discussed the different options. We asked Laura at the end of it to provide projections for the general fund budget as well, and she did provide those earlier this week. Looking at those, to me personally, doesn't look feasible with the general fund expenditures compared to our revenue. It looked like, in 2025, we would be at the point where our general fund would be depleted with how much we would have to put towards police levy to cover the wages. You know, I don't want to take the risk of adding a 5th full-time officer, and in 2 years, we have to turn around and lay somebody off because we don't have the funding to cover it. Now, I know there's talk, or there is, you know, a chance that all 5 positions wouldn't be filled at the same time. Yes, that's true. My only thing is, I think we have to account for the chance that they are all full.
I mean, do you have those, Jeremy? I mean, I don't recall seeing those. But
Yeah, she emailed them. I'm not sure if you were on it, actually.
because we were, it wasn't that I recall that significant a difference.
Well, it would have.
We're doing well in the general fund as well.
We are, but when she laid in the anticipated receipts or our revenue, and so what we were looking at is 149,000 is what we felt we had to go to with looking at the police levy funding. That would get us out to 2028, I think is what the out year was, to make us comfortable with, over 5 years. Yeah, we could probably make it that long. We wouldn't have somebody in there all 5 years. But as I said, when we asked her to give us the general fund expense forecast, kind of the same thing she gave us for the police levy, going up to 149,000, it had us with a negative balance in 2025, and the same with doing 125,000. I just know there's other things we're looking at, near term and long term, with the park, with Main Street project, or not the Main Street project, but Enon Xenia. Just to me, looking at it, just the financials, I don't see how we're going to get there with current expenditures and revenue.
As mayor, the way I look at this is we have built our department up. We've gotten to a point where long-term, we need to increase our tax base, plain and simple. We could try to finagle funds in the general fund back and forth between the general and the police, and we could work with that. But I just think we've gotten to a point where we need more tax. We need new sources of property tax revenue for our general fund. That's my take on it. So, and that's only going to happen if we annex. So that's a whole topic of its own.
But at the same time, I think hiring police officers is pretty core. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy, security is basic. And, some of the other things that, we spend our money on may not be as basic of a need as that. I think we also have, I don't think we laid in anything, the potential that there is to use some of the ARPA funds, at least for the next 2 years, which would have mitigated and had an impact on what the 2025 funding would be. I think if we had laid that in and taken some of that, we would have a different balance other than negative. I just, I'm concerned about all, general fund as well as the police fund, but I'm also concerned about our role in taking care of and protecting the citizens of Enon versus a city park or something like that.
Sure.
So, my take is that I think we need to really look at funding the other police officer, keeping our current force at least non-stress as much as stress as they are right now, having to work the odd schedules and things like this. I think it's a little remiss just to not factor in that you are going to have gaps in when you do civ payrolls and any kind of a payroll. You know, you always have to factor in losses and gaps in funding and then all the benefits that we don't have to pay because of that as well. You know, Social Security and healthcare and all those kinds of things. If you look at the straight numbers, the way they're laid out, yes, you know, it would appear that we couldn't do that. But I think there's enough that wasn't put into this thing as far as a real cost estimate that I think we need to fund the police officers and I think the money's going to be there to do that.
Well, the ARPA funds were not, that's a good point, they were not considered in that, and that would be something that it's a legitimate use if that's what the council were to decide to do. So that is something else to consider, so.
I mean, we can reach out to Laura and have her provide kind of the same thing with including if you wanted to use all the ARPA funds for it, see how far it would get us out. I just don't want to get us into a position where we use up the ARPA funding. So, okay, maybe that gets us 2 more years. Maybe it gets us to 27.
Well, that's 125,000 or what do we have in our ARPA?
Yeah.
125?
Yeah, so
And I think the figure was, what, like 60, close to 60 for one officer. No, it was it 74 total cost? 74,530.
74.5?
So, you know, that could get us a year and a half further down the road.
you know, but again, it's still 3 years down the road, and there's just like Tim was talking about, maybe within those 3 years as well, we would have that. But at the same point, we would be taking care of our officers now and providing some relief and have that for at least 2-3 years. So no one wants to lay off anybody.
Nope.
I certainly am not inclined to take our general fund down to a point that we can't meet those basic needs either.
Right.
But
That's
the police
basically.
force is pretty critical
It is.
in my mind, and I think to many citizens as well. I mean, we have a separate levy to do that, but understanding that that levy doesn't cover all needs, and they expect the village to help supplement that. And we can't be losing our police officers because they're having to work the hours that they are, the days that they have to, because of all the fits and gaps that we have, and people resign to take other jobs.
Right.
As Anthony just did. So
I just don't know if we're ever going to get to the point where we're going to keep an officer from going to the sheriff's
no.
office. I don't think we're ever going to get to the point that we're going to pay them enough to.
You got me.
Okay, so we've got one.
We got Miranda. We got Doug. They didn't go.
Okay.
So I agree with both Dave and Tim. Law enforcement is the ultimate we have to keep. At the same time, as Jeremy says, we use the ARPA funds, it gives us another bit of time. In that time, what can we do to look into and annexing more tax base? Say, for example, Speedway Corporation, CPEX, the businesses on that end of town, not necessarily population as homes, but the businesses. Would that help, and what committee does that fall under to look into that?
Well, first of all, the annexation process has changed since the last time we did an annexation, and I think it would be good to know what exactly is that process. typically it requires the approval of the majority of the property owners. So if you're talking one or two businesses, how would that work? Those people would have a desire to come into the village, and so it might be very easy. On the other hand, if you have a situation where there's maybe some economic development funds that are tied to expansions, where there's incentives that were presented, so there could be other things that could cloud. But a good starting point would be, it's like, how does the annexation process work now? Because it's been a while since, I'm trying to think the last time we annexed anything, and I think it was the well field. And that was in 90, what did we determine? We were talking about the annexation of that. Was it like in 90 something? Back in the 90s, we annexed that. So it was a single property, the village of Enon. So those procedures have changed over the years. So in my opinion, the first thing, if we were to consider that, is what is it all about today? How does it work? And how would things get complicated if you're going to annex property that's already developed versus annexing a piece of property or properties that are undeveloped with the plan to develop them to generate tax revenue?
Okay, and which committee does any of that fall under, to look into that?
Does that sound like finance, Jeremy? No.
Legislative?
It might be wise also, before you go into specific areas, to know if there's any particular tax abatement agreements that have been issued that might make the entire process or not. So
It could make it, in my opinion, it could make it very complicated. The potential could be there. But just to see what that process is in general to annex property, I think would be beneficial to all of us. So.
Okay, I guess my next question is, how does one go about finding out this information? Where do you go?
Through our solicitor,
Okay,
and I will contact him.
thank you, sir.
So I guess I need to get the committee meeting minutes approved by our members. So
I'll make a motion to approve them.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Yeah. I have that for.
Thank you. We'll put that in the stack. Mrs. Sweet, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, sir. We were scheduling where did I put my information? Public service meeting for the purpose of continuing our work on the employee handbook now for Monday evening, November 21st at 6:30 here. And in the meantime, we do have the employees handbook with the suggested updates. And the committee members will be looking at that, and then we will be discussing it at that meeting and approving or making any other, actually getting answers to any questions that we would have about it, and then bringing it back to council after that.
So what time you want to do?
So it'll
the
be
meeting?
6:30, November 21st. It's a Monday here. And if you'll notify the public for us, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Hanna, Sports Complex.
okay, just a couple quick updates from the last meeting. Y'all should have in front of you, and thanks to Kevin, copies of the most recent rendering that was done by Harrell and Stevenson. At this point, we've got a gentleman named Noah Smith that's developed these, and I guess he'll be our contact at this point until we go to the next stage, which I think the next stage probably should be to where we open it to public comment and see what our constituents and residents think about what their desires may be, or see what they think of the plan that we've came up with to this point, and make it a little more permanent once we satisfy the public input. Now, understanding that we also have an issue with the township and trying to put on something that would coincide with the township, I'm not sure how logistically that would work. But for right now, I think we have what we need to do in order to put this out. I've not heard anything further from the trustees about this, but you can see what we have in front of us that goes about meeting the criteria for our EPA and elevations, as well as our possibility of future well development, so.
And Rick, I think I told you this not to get too specific, but I think that that well that's to the northeast there, I think that could be scooted down. There can be a little overlap in that 300-foot radius.
Okay.
Ours are 150 feet apart now, so I don't see why it couldn't be close. That way there would be no interference with whatever you put on the field, which would make it a lot cleaner operation.
Okay.
So I think that would work out really well.
Are there any other questions or remarks before we would want to try to schedule a public meeting to hear comments at this point?
I think we're ready. That's my
I do
opinion.
too. I
do too.
think that, we're to that stage, and I think we owe it to our residents too, to let them see what some of our hopes and dreams we've kind of put together to this point. So at this point, is there a particular, with the anticipation there may be people that may be coming up that have school-age children, is there any one night that's worse than another night, Jeremy, as far as for school activity? Okay.
No.
Is
Thanks,
going
stuff
out,
on every night.
They're all bad.
is going out the 17th, or the 16th or the 17th, which would be a week from tomorrow or a week from Thursday.
You're talking November.
November, Rick?
Yeah.
The 17th is school board meeting.
That was
What's that?
going to be the only thing if we
Yeah,
had, if
school
there
board
was a school
meeting
board
is the
or
17th, yeah.
When is the school board meeting?
17.
The
17th.
17th, I'm sorry. Thank you.
How about the 16th, Wednesday evening? Kevin, if we can put out a public notice for November the 16th at, let's do 6:30, kind of,
Rick, is this a combined meeting with the township too, correct?
pardon me?
Combined meeting with the township too, correct?
We'll offer it to the township and let them make the logistic.
I think we ought to advertise it as a joint meeting, just to be on the safe side, and then if they show up, hopefully they'll
As soon as
show.
we get two of them here, then we got a formal meeting.
Exactly
So
right.
That's where the
Right.
problem comes
Yep.
in.
So let's advertise it that
Advertise
way.
it as
As a joint meeting.
So the township public can also come. Since it's their.
And probably, Kevin, if we
Correct.
could hit that with our social media accounts very,
Yep.
as
Sure
heavily
will.
as possible. At this point, suggestions, considerations, should we, I'll strike that. I was thinking about maybe putting this out as far as for, on social media ahead of time, but I think we might want to wait until we get the public in here. So, other than that, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them the best of what we can. Our anticipation is we want to make the 90-degree turn off the cul-de-sac. We're prepared to do that as soon as we can get the township in there to use their equipment to make that cut before we get into the fall and get the winter and get a halfway decent road bed in there for the ground freezes.
Rick, would you mind contacting Todd?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Do we have any more comments or questions on this project? Okay, thanks, Rick. We have No new business, no executive session, comments from the public. Mr. Wozak, welcome back to Enon, Ohio.
I heard there was a meeting tonight, and I just had to jump up here. Chuck Wozak, Village of Enon resident. Relative to the sports complex, a couple of things. Are we not co-equal partners with the township, being that they've put in half the money?
That's,
Yes.
yes.
Then I would ask, would it be premature to go forward unilaterally with the presumption that the township would just like to glom on and not really be a full partner in, say, going forward? In other words, don't you think there should be like a joint committee between the Village of Enon and the township to move forward? That's just a question for you. Just a thought. If you're going to go forward with a public meeting, then I think what you should do is you should contact the sports leagues that are going to be fielding teams on these surfaces. In other words, if you get them juiced up, in other words, get the coaches and the presidents of the soccer, the Little League, whoever you plan on fielding out there, if you get them juiced up, you don't have to worry about old timers like us. And right now, if you just put out a call for a meeting to say, hey, you're going to get us four, and maybe a few other people that are going to be. So I really think that in order to make this thing go forward, you need to think strategically and say, okay, who's this going to benefit? Who really is this going to benefit? And it's the kids. It's the sports leagues and stuff like that you're going to draw in. You know yourself, you said you are a softball player. So who would be very interested in having that conveniently located? And so it's just a thought going forward on those two issues. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good comments.
Thank you.
And I think great minds are already thinking alike. So, yes, appreciate it. Any other comments? Well,
Motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, I forgot, we need to accept the BZA minutes. Need a motion to accept, we didn't do that.
So moved.
Second. I think Ben got me.
call the roll.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion.
Hold on just a sec. Before, Chuck brought up a point. Let me check with Todd Pettit to see if that would be any conflicting dates with the township, if there might be something going along. We'll still plan on trying to have that meeting on that particular day at time and see if would be any problem with.
Just hold off on the public notice.
Yes.
Till you hear from Rick.
Yeah, I'll let you know tomorrow. I should
Okay,
know that.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So we had a motion to adjourn from Mr. Hannah. Was there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Whitaker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.